Scream Team? It's your boy Neal, back with another reaction video, guys. Here we are with Kaitlyn Amanda once again. Love her videos. 10 Australian things America doesn't even have a word for. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, get a video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. Here we go!
G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Kaitlyn and I'm an American learning to live down under here in beautiful Sydney, Australia. I've been living in Australia for several months now. I've been dating an Aussie for several years.
Aye.
And there are just some words that are Australian that do not translate to most Americans when they first hear it. Even though most American words are known to Aussies through things like the media, through social media, through Hollywood, movies, and so many other things, there are a lot of Australian words that Americans just don't know. So today I'm breaking down some of that language barrier and sharing 10 Australian words that Americans just don't know. The first word is roundabout, and if you drive anywhere in Australia, you are probably going to see these. Okay, maybe not so much if you're driving around in the outback or really far out in the bush, but if you're within any of the cities in Australia, you are going to come across a roundabout. While there are some of these over in the States, they're not common, and most people in the States probably wouldn't really know how to react if they had to drive around one. The states in the US have different road rules. A lot of places will have jug handle turns. Some of them just have typical four-way stop signs or four-way traffic lights. But over here in Australia, something that is pretty unique, at least from an American's perspective, is that there are roundabouts in the road. And so far I've seen roundabouts for anything like a three-way street, even up to a six-way road. And these aren't just small little roundabouts that you'll see in corners. You will see these going onto motorways, even coming in and out of some parking lots. Roundabouts are something that are very common over here in Australia. And the first time, even though I was just a passenger, the first time I had to go through some of these, it's a little nerve-wracking. Not only the first couple times you're in a car, you're also on the other side of the road, but you're also seeing these circles and you have no idea how people really know when to go in, when to go out, when to put your turn signal on, when to jump in, how to make sure that somebody isn't going to cut in front of you. And what if these roundabouts have two lanes in them? There is so much to these that when you first see these, they almost blow your mind as an American over here in Australia. So learning how to use roundabouts is something that is very different over here in Australia. Roundabouts just aren't common in the States, so most of the time if you say roundabout, a lot of Americans just won't know what you're talking about.
I feel like, I know what you're talking about. If you say roundabout, I know what you mean. Cause like she said, they're not common here, but we have some. Like I've driven some, but like she said, bro, like I don't know, roundabout. Since I'm so used to like a four-way stop sign, like everybody just. I'm not used to roundabouts. They're not common, bro. Sometimes you do just be like, I done driven some roundabouts and I'll be so confused, bro. I'll be like, I'll be scared. Like, how do I exit out of here to the road that I want to go on? And it's just a different. I mean, I can learn it. Like, you know what I'm saying? After a couple times, you learn but it's more confusing for me just because it's so much more common to have like a four-way stop or like all-road stop, depending on how much roads you got intersecting. Everybody stop signs at each intersection. Whoever gets the stop sign goes first. And that I'm sure roundabouts are much more efficient. You know what I'm saying? Where drivers don't like you have to stop and wait for all the other drivers to go. But yeah, I'm just not used to them. They're like she said, they're not common here. They're not very common here. There are some. They're not common. Something
that I've only come across over here in Australia, at least the name. As an American, I'm very familiar with these, are Dagwood dogs. So Dagwood dogs are what we call corn dogs over in the States. A typical hot dog covered in a cornmeal batter, deep fried. You'll find them at carnivals, fairs.
I haven't had a corn dog in so long, bro. Jesus. I love a good corn dog. Oh my God.
The first time I actually saw one was at the Royal Easter Show this year, which is almost like a massive fair and carnival over here in Sydney for any Americans who are watching and have no idea what I'm talking about. I think even if you don't live in Sydney, a lot of Aussies still know what the Royal Sydney Easter Show is. But even though we have pretty much the same food over in the States, they're not called corn dogs over here in Australia, they are called Dagwood dogs. It's a little ironic that corn dogs are an American food, but they're called Dagwood dogs over here, which actually comes from the American cartoon strip Blondie. The corn dogs were actually
Really?
made in the States back in...
Because I was literally just about to ask, like, where did Dagwood dogs, if they were made, like, in America, where did Dagwood dogs come from? But I see that. Thank you for letting us know, Kaitlyn. Dagwood dog. I've never heard that name in my life. That's one video. I've watched some of the Australian videos, but that's one that's new to me.
In 1947 at the Minnesota State Fair, although there are debates that have actually started at the Texas State Fair back in the 1930s. Whatever the origin story really is, they were an American food. So the fact that they're called Dagwood dogs based off of an American comic strip over here in Australia is, I guess, a little ironic.
That's not ironic. Remember that one? Isn't it ironic? No, it's not.
You would think Dagwood dog would have something to do with like Australian pop culture, but in this case, nope, still American.
That's
now, of course, we
wild.
couldn't talk about Australian words without putting this on here, and that is outback. Yes, if you say outback, most Americans automatically
Steakhouse.
think of Australia. They also might automatically think of Outback Steakhouse because there are so many of those commercials over in the States. It's insane.
I've never actually ate at an Outback Steakhouse, and I love steak so freaking much. Like, favorite food, hands down. But yeah, that Outback in Australia, too many animals, too many poisonous animals, too many poisonous trees. And we got some of that stuff like when you go into hiking and stuff here, and that's why I'm more of a city guy. I'm more of an indoors guy. I don't do a lot of outdoor activity. I can't think of a lot of outdoor activity that I do. I don't do it.
Hurry into Outback, mate. For just $9.99, get a mouthful.
That's crazy. 2011.
All for a
Yeah, you ain't
the
getting.
price of just $9.99. It's all
You ain't getting that for $9.99 no more. I tell you that for a fact. For a fact, you're not getting that for. I don't know when this commercial, but that definitely ain't $9.99 no more. And I ain't never been there. I just know.
fresh in the Outback.
But when you talk about the Outback, a lot of Americans don't really know what it is. They seem to think that the Outback is like down under. It's just another nickname for all of Australia. So most Aussies know where the Outback is. I mean, it's kind of that center desert-ish area. But the way I learned it and the way I kind of remembered it is you have the cities, and outside of the cities you have the suburbs. Outside of the suburbs you have the bush, and out back of the bush is the Outback.
Okay.
If that's wrong, let me know down below, because honestly,
Okay.
I don't know where the borders of the Outback are specifically. But when you talk about the Outback over in America, they do know that you're referencing something from Australia, but a lot of Americans typically think of the Outback as just another nickname for Australia. They don't know it's actually a particular area of Australia.
Yeah.
So one word that Americans will have no idea what you're talking about is Schnitty. And Schnitty is short for Schnitzel, which is a German word.
Never heard it. Schnitty. I have heard schnitzel. I've seen some German videos too, and what schnitzel is, it looks so good too. But schnitty, yeah, I've never heard schnitty.
So if you start talking about a Schnitty roll, Americans are going to be very, very confused about what it is you're talking about.
Lost.
Even though a schnitzel or Schnitty over here is just known as a very flattened out piece of chicken covered in some type of breading and often fried, sometimes baked depending on where you get it. It's the base for Schnitty rolls, the base for a chicken parma. It's the base for a lot of really common, especially pub foods that you will see over here in Australia. And when Americans think of Aussie food, typically they might think of Vegemite, of Tim Tams, of...
Y'all know every time they mention Vegemite in a video, I gotta make the stink face. I gotta. At this point, I can't stop because it's tradition at this point. It's tradition that anytime Vegemite is shown or talked about in a video, I gotta make a comment. I'm sorry, but you can't stop tradition. You can't stop tradition, so had to get a stink face though. Vegemite. Tim Tams though, those are fire, absolutely.
Americans think of Aussie food, typically they might think of Vegemite, of Tim Tams, of kangaroo skewers.
Ooh.
Some who have a little bit more knowledge might be thinking of different types of Arnott's biscuits. They might be thinking about fairy bread. They might be thinking about meat pies. But
I still need to try some fairy bread. Still haven't tried fairy bread. Still need to try.
often, Schnitty is not something that comes to mind for most Americans. So this is definitely an Aussie word that most Americans would not know.
Yes.
Number 5, while we're on
Never
the
heard
topic
it.
of food, is Vegemite. Of course, there is no other kind of word for Vegemite over in America, because there's no other thing like Vegemite in America.
No.
Yeah, there are some other sort of, not quite knock.
It would never, if you put it on the shelf, it would never leave the shelf. It would, it'll never leave the shelf. It'll expire in the store on the shelf. Yeah, I feel like you have to give it out for free, and even then you struggle to get it off the shelf.
Coughs of Vegemite, but you have things like Marmite and Promite. But oftentimes you won't find spreads like this over in the US, or at least not in your common everyday grocery store. You might have to go to a specialty food shop in order to get some type of yeast spread or vegetable-ish kind of spread. But you're not going to find anything like Vegemite at all over in the States. No. Most spreads over in the States are typically either very sweet spreads, like you find Nutella and jams and jellies, things like that. And as far as savory spreads go, you might find relishes, you might find salsa, you might find different types of mustard spreads and different kinds of hot sauces. But you won't find anything like a yeast spread, which is what Vegemite is over in the States.
Never will.
Next up.
You never will. You never, because in mass, I think some people would like it. But in mass, I don't think we like it.
Obviously, I really need to have lunch because I must be starving because I keep coming up with food things. And that is Lamingtons. Lamingtons are not something you will see over in the States. I've only seen them in one place ever in the States, and that was in an Aussie-style cafe where they had Vegemite toast, they had smashed avo, and they sold Lamingtons. And normally they had those cute little Australian toothpicks on them with the little Aussie flag, which is just really, really cute. But Lamingtons are not something that you are going to see over in the States. Here, you can go to a Woolies or a Kohl's or IGA and pick up packs of Lamingtons. You can go to the bakery and see them. You can go to a corner store and see them. They are all over cafes across Australia. But in the States, they are impossible to find. You cannot find Lamingtons anywhere. You might be lucky enough to find an Aussie bakery that sells them, but typically if you want Lamingtons in the States and you actually know what they are, you are going to have to make them from scratch. So Lamingtons are something that most Americans just would not know. Now this one's scary.
Yeah, I don't know. It looked good. But yeah, I don't know about Lamingtons. I don't think I've ever had a Lamington before, no. Because I've had some Australian food, like snacks, candy, and it was, oh my God, it was incredible. Y'all had some of the most incredible snacks, bro. The little, I still don't know, I don't remember what they're called, but the little cookie balls or cookie, oh gosh, they're the best cookies I've eaten. They're much better than Oreos, Chips Ahoy, all the cookies we got over here, bro. Those little cookie balls y'all got over there are just, they're God's gift to earth, bro. And y'all have incredible chocolate. But yeah, I've never had a Lamington.
Scares me. I haven't been in Australia in the spring yet, and I thought it was kind of similar to drop bears, where it was just Aussies pulling your leg, having a joke. But magpie swooping is not something that most Americans would know about. I have not yet experienced this firsthand. I'm hoping that I never do. And I really hope this isn't like drop bears where it's just kind of a joke, but I've seen enough articles online that I really don't think it is.
Nah, that's
but magpie swooping happens over here in Australia in the spring, where birds will literally swoop at your head and try to attack you.
Crazy.
As far as I know, there are no birds that swoop at you like this over in the States, or if they are, they aren't spread countrywide, because it seems like magpies are something that all of Australia is afraid of. They're not stuck in one localized area. It's not like you're only going to find magpies around Sydney or Melbourne or farther up the coast or anywhere up north. From the sounds of it, magpies are everywhere over here in Australia, which is really, really worrying for when spring comes. And I've also seen a lot of magpies in my neighborhood, so now I'm a little bit worried about how that's going to turn out in a couple months when spring hits.
You should be.
Magpie swooping is definitely something most Americans would have no idea what you're talking about. So magpie swooping is definitely something Americans don't have a word for. Now this one...
Because before I watched these videos, I would have never known what a magpie even was, bro. But now I watch these videos, I learned that Australians, they are scared of the poisonous snakes. They aren't scared of the poisonous spiders. They aren't scared of the crocs. They aren't scared of the jellyfish. They aren't scared of the octopus. They ain't scared of a lot of these animals. but they scared of them goddamn magpies, bro. The magpies instill fear, bro. Yeah, I don't like birds. Like, I had one incident with birds, and I've been afraid of them since. But yeah, if a magpie started swooping at my head, oh my god, bro, I would just go into a panic. I would go into a legit panic. My heart would start going crazy. So I feel sorry for anybody that get attacked by these magpies.
It's going to depend more on where you live in Australia. I think most Aussies at least know what this is, but not a lot of Aussies have to worry about this. It depends on the area where you're at, and that is red belly black. Red belly blacks are one of those venomous species of snakes. So red belly black snakes are something you will find along the east coast of Australia. You're not going to find them in Tasmania or along Western Australia or the Northern Territory. And although red belly blacks are venomous, they haven't been noted to kill anybody over here in Australia. However, they can make you incredibly ill. So when you say red belly black, most Americans are going to have no idea what you're talking about until you mention that it is a kind of snake.
Yeah.
And then they are immediately going to jump to the conclusion that it's a venomous snake that can kill you with one bite.
Facts.
Because
that's such a fact. That is legit. She explained that so perfectly. We not gonna know what it is until you say it's a snake. And then when you tell us it's a snake, we gonna assume that it's a venomous snake that can kill you in one bite. Yeah. She's definitely from America. She knows America very well.
most Americans think every snake in Australia can kill you. Which, to be honest, if you don't know the difference between snakes, is probably just a safe assumption to assume that everything can kill you, because then you don't have to worry. Luckily, I haven't seen any snakes around here yet, and I'm hoping I never do. So, red belly black is not a word that Americans are going to know if you mention it to them. And it's just something that Americans don't have a word for. Just like lorikeets. While there are a huge variety of birds over in the U.S., there are no lorikeets over in the U.S. Living where I am over in Western Sydney, I do see rainbow lorikeets all the time. They are absolutely beautiful birds. But if I talk about the lorikeets, most Americans have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. And I have to tell them that it is a type of bird native to Australia. And then when I send the pictures, they are in shock at just how beautiful these creatures are. I'm telling you, the birds over here in Australia are absolutely amazing. And seeing rainbow lorikeets in the gum trees, especially whenever I'm walking around in my neighborhood, is just incredible. But most Americans don't know what a lorikeet is, so if you mention it to them, you're going to have to say it's kind of similar to a parrot in that it is very bright, it's very colorful, it's a small bird, very brightly colored bird, absolutely beautiful. I think I've said the word beautiful talking about these birds like 3 or 4 times so far. Yeah,
now, from that picture she posted up about, of it, though, it did look absolutely beautiful. Like, yeah, but I had no idea what the lorikeet was until I saw that picture, and that picture's the only thing. When I think of lorikeet, I'm just gonna think of that picture, think of that bird. But it was a beautiful bird.
Actually, most Americans just don't know what a lorikeet is. And now the last one, number 10, bringing the last bit of wildlife into this, and that is Bogan. Most Americans have no idea what a Bogan is.
I feel like, but most people, when they say like Bogan and try to compare it to American, they say like a redneck. Like in a lot of videos, when they say like, what's a similar thing to a Bogan in America, they compare it to like a redneck. So, but I guess if it's different, then yeah, we don't really have a word for it.
They've never heard the word, they don't really understand what it is. And when most Aussies try to explain it, it seems like they just say it's the Australian version of an American redneck. Yeah, but at the same time, I've also seen other layers to it as well. Some people just assume that it's somebody who is a redneck. So Bogans seem to be associated mostly with slightly lower class or slightly uneducated people over here in Australia. It's not just rednecks. Well, there are some similarities that you can kind of joke about in the stereotypes. Mullet wearing, cheap beer drinking, flip-flop or thong wearing, fairly uneducated, probably works a blue-collar job, assuming they don't just live off of the government. There's all these stereotypes behind Bogans and rednecks that, yes, they can be similar, but Bogans over here in Australia seem to have a little bit more layers to it. It's not just people who fall into these stereotypes, but a lot of people will call somebody Bogan if they're just poor, if they're undereducated, if they work a blue-collar job, even if they're a pretty intelligent and well-spoken person. I feel like bogan is a word that gets thrown around a lot more over here in Australia than redneck does over in the States. So to be honest, even though there are some similarities, hearing people say things like bogan over here is a lot more common than hearing redneck over in the States. And even though in some ways they are kind of similar, bogan is just not a word that most Americans know. And when you say it's kind of similar to rednecks, most Americans get it, but when they hear these extra layers to it with Aussies talking, that there's so much more to bogans than just like the stereotypical redneck traits, it does kind of confuse Americans because a redneck is a very tightened stereotypical definition, whereas bogan seems very broad over here in Australia.
Okay.
So that is it, guys. 10 Australian words that most Americans just don't have words for. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned a little something. If you did, hit the like and subscribe button down below to join our little Amer-Australian family. I post on Mondays and normally Thursdays about the differences between American and Australian culture and the overall process of learning to live down under. My name's Kaitlyn and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.
Definitely make some videos and yeah, I mean we don't have word for a lot of the things that she was talking about. She was absolutely right. But that's all we got. You guys got a favorite video suggestion? You can subscribe to Patreon or drop it in the comment section. It's your boy Neal. Out.